All right, folks, thanks so much for joining us today for your Connected Car Services webinar with RCR Wireless News. We are a news source for the wireless communications industry. We've been around since 1981, and you folks are our target audience. I would like to introduce your panelists for today's webinar. I'm Kelly Hill. I'm one of the editors over here at RCR Wireless News. We have Rusty Lhamon, who is Senior Director for IoT Solutions with T-Mobile US, Craig Miller, who is VP of Worldwide Marketing for Sequans Communications, and then we're also joined by Kenny Hawk, who is CEO of Mojio. I'm going to jump right in and say our first question is that will the presentation be available? Yes, it will be. So let's jump into some of the recent connected car news. Just a few things that came out recently. We have Nissan that plans to offer a connected device for the market in Japan and India starting next year. This will be something that is for a non-embedded offering. They also plan to expand that offering potentially to other countries, and are aiming possibly to have as many as 30% of their vehicle base connected with this new device that they're coming up with. Recently, we had Samsung buying Harman, which is a tier 1 automotive supplier, for $8 billion. Just this week, we had Hyundai joining the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, to contribute to connected car standards. There was also some news out of Amazon recently, a talk that they did at a conference about some of the plans that they have for integrating Alexa, which is their virtual assistant, with Amazon Web Services as an automotive offering. And this one, I thought this was pretty interesting. This was a report out of Seattle. There was a BMW that was stolen, and the owner was actually able to, via the BMW Connect Drive service, to have the car thief locked inside the car, and the vehicle was recovered, and the thief arrested. So all kinds of new things coming out these days. So we do have a Connected Car Services special report from RCR that will be available on our website as a free download later today. Just a few key points on this topic. Platforms and partnerships, I would say, the impression I got is really that they're forming now that are going to be shaping this ecosystem as it emerges. There's a wide range of services, both business to business and business to consumer. Still in the early days, a lot of really interesting stuff that is starting to emerge, both in terms of apps, in terms of embedded services, and smartphone capabilities and integration. There's an estimated 380 million connected cars that are estimated will be on the roads globally. That's a global figure, by 2021. That comes from BI Business Intelligence. And they actually bumped that number up and said that the market is growing faster than it's expected. But another analyst I talked to also made note of the point that in automotive, you got a lot of long development cycles, and there's a significant lag between a company's ability to put innovative things in place and when the customer base actually goes through and adopt them. So definitely something to keep in mind. So now I'm going to pass it over to Rusty Lhamon from T-Mobile. Rusty?
Hey, thanks, Kelly. Great to have everyone here today, and great news. Being here in Seattle, it's interesting to hear about the thief being locked into their car. I think that's a great story, so thanks for sharing that. Kelly, if you want to jump to the next slide, we'll just jump right in here.
Okay.
So for everyone on the webinar here, just wanted to help people understand T-Mobile and our approach to this Internet of Things market. Many of you are probably familiar with T-Mobile for our more traditional consumer phone business, which is certainly the majority of T-Mobile's business today. But we're right now in the middle of a massive transition to really support the Internet of Things. And what we're transitioning to is a solutions function, really bringing our Un-carrier focus to this Internet of Things market, bringing simple solutions that customers can understand to market, focusing on the same thing we do in our consumer business, solving pain points for our customers, and of course, disrupting the status quo. We believe that there's a lot of opportunity, and it's also a lot of fun. Historically, T-Mobile's been providing traditional M2M connectivity, where we really focused on just providing the connection for folks in this space. and using our wireless connectivity, they could bring sensors and systems online. We were really only charging them for usage of data and weren't providing an end solution to a customer. We're going through a marketplace that's mostly aggregators and resellers. As we've transitioned into this IoT space, we're focusing on more complete solutions with the rich data analytic capabilities, decision making that makes meaningful information actionable, and then focused on business models that bring these unique and disruptive services to market. One of the key things as the T-Mobile strategy and a focus point for us is that we're doing a lot of this through partnerships. And so we're really looking to partner up and work with the best players in the market. This is a great space that's evolving quickly. We're not going to do it all ourselves. But as we talk about what we are doing, let's go to the next slide and we'll talk specifically about the connected car piece of this. Connected cars, it's a market ripe for expansion. There's a lot of traction, as Kelly mentioned earlier. One of the interesting points that we are seeing is, for the first time in Q1 of this year, connected cars and IoT, majority of that being connected cars, exceeded phones and tablets for the first time in terms of the net adds in the wireless space. It was 32% of net adds for connected cars, and IoT was bigger than any phones and tablet ads. AT&T in particular, to call out one of the carriers in this space, they've combined 8 straight quarters in a row now of more cars than phones and tablets. And the cars are onboarding at twice the pace of tablets. It's estimated that they probably have about 10 million connected cars today. Similarly, Verizon is seeing a significant growth, and in particular, they've been focusing on an acquisition strategy with their Hum product being out there at about 250,000 devices now. When we look at this from a T-Mobile standpoint, though, we really see that the market, as you see in the diagram on the right, is majority used cars. There's roughly 16 million new cars brought into the market in the US each year. It may be a little higher than that now. It was about a little over 17 million last year. But in general, there's 200 million cars that are on the road today that have OBD2 ports that can be connected. And we see this as a very big opportunity to bring connected car features, functionality, and benefits to virtually everyone. We see software-centric startups entering the space aggressively, and we see consumers actively asking for 4G LTE connectivity, and this really gave us an opportunity to bring something new and unique to the market. So if you jump to the next slide, Kelly, we'll talk about what that is. We've brought a product called Sync Up Drive to market in November. This is a very easy to use, available for any car with an OBD2 product. This product brings safety, brings Wi-Fi, and a whole lot of vehicle functionality to the market, and as I said, works in virtually every car that has an OBD2 port. You'll hear a little bit later from one of our partners, Mojio, about how they've helped make this reality. And what you can see on the screen right now is the simple dongle that's produced by ZTE, and then the app on the phone, which is powered by Mojio. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk about some of the things this product does. Safety, security, and connectivity for your car. It's a virtual mechanic. It helps troubleshoot problems by reading diagnostic trouble codes. It can also help improve driving behavior, analyzing and reporting on drivers if you have a small fleet. It knows your car's location, knows when you're parked, if it's been stolen or towed. It even alerts you if the car's been bumped. And one of the powers of T-Mobile is our LTE network, fastest LTE network in America. And with this product, you get a Wi-Fi hotspot in the vehicle capable of connecting up to 5 devices and bringing that speed and power to the riders and passengers in your vehicle. We've seen a fantastic pickup on this product so far. It's only been in the market a few weeks, so it is still new, but the response has been very, very positive. And if you jump to the next slide, Kelly, we'll talk really quickly about what you get when you buy this product. The customer picks this up in our store, and when they buy it, they get the device, and they get a simple single plan that offers them the service on the free mobile app that they can download from the App Store, the data that supports the telematics features, which are the vehicle notifications, tracking, and the features you see in the app, as well as the repository for all this data so you can report on it later, you can review past trips, and you can set and manage the functionality of your Wi-Fi in your vehicle. Very simple, it's very easy to use, and the response in the market has been, I think, something that really makes us feel very proud to have brought this product to market. One of the key things that you'll hear as you move forward is that we try to disrupt markets. We try to be able to bring products to market that really address pain points for our customers, and this one we feel really did. We've got a number of folks out there that can't afford to buy a new car, which is where a lot of folks are putting their efforts in on the connectivity space, and they would like these features in their existing car, and now we've done that and enabled that for them. So if you go to the next slide, just quickly, we're doing this as the end carrier. We're trying to listen to our customers. We believe we've done that, and then partner with folks to help make this happen. And when you hear what Kenny has to say later and what Craig has to say, you'll get a chance to hear a little bit more about how we partner with folks like them. And we're always open to hear what you have to say too. So if any of you out there on the webinar have ideas for how this might be improved, we're happy to listen and very eager to partner. In conclusion, if you go to the next slide, Kelly, we don't know exactly where the Internet of Things is going. We have our ideas, and we're very happy to be looking at partnerships to expand and grow. This product is one case where we think the connected car space is just at the cusp of the start of growth, and we're looking forward to participating for years to come.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks so much, Rusty. Now we're going to hear from Craig Miller with Sequans.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks to all of you who've connected to the webinar today. Glad to be with you. You'll indulge me just for a minute. I'm going to do just a quick commercial here for Sequans so you know who we are, since we are sponsoring this. And then I'll offer a few pieces of information that I think are relevant and important to the audience. So, like I said, we're happy to sponsor this webinar, since we've seen so much interest in our products from all of these great companies that are looking to create the next generation of connected car applications. And we know this is one of the leading segments within this huge market that Rusty just talked about. The Internet of Things is so big, but I can tell you that the connected car is probably one of the leaders within that vast space. And like Rusty also mentioned, we're proud. We partnered with Rusty's team at T-Mobile, and I can share that it's very clear to us that the connected car space is a primary focus of our partnership together. We're working with several applications and innovators in the space to bring solutions to market. Let me just give you a second on Sequans, in case you don't know who we are. We're a chip maker, and we're laser focused on developing the leading LTE for IoT chipset solutions. So basically, in the case of the connected car, we bring the connection. Our currently shipping IoT chipsets are shown here, including the newest LTE M platform called Monarch, and our LTE Category 1 chipset called Calliope, and also a Category 4, higher performance chipset called Calibri. These are all shipping today. And they're among, we believe, the most cost-effective and size and power optimized solutions on the market for the Internet of Things. So Kelly, if we go to the next slide, now I'll stop with the commercial and actually maybe share a little useful information. So why would you care about LTE for the Internet of Things, including the connected car, when there are other options out there, 2G and 3G networks, after all? Well, first, I think it's important to acknowledge that the LTE industry is huge and innovative, full of investment. It's a global standard, and probably most importantly to this audience, it has longevity on its side. This existence of networks for long durations is really important if you care about your service having a network available for a long period of time. Second is, the networks themselves. I mean, T-Mobile is one of the leaders here in adding coverage and capacity and performance to their network. While in many countries, including in the U.S. here, legacy networks are either about to be shut down or already are. And AT&T has publicly announced, they're sunsetting their 2G network on as of December 31st. So obviously that longevity is important. Third is the technology itself has a lot of attributes that are perfect for IoT use cases, including the connected car. The mobility obviously is important for transportation, but it's also, low latency, high throughput if you need it. It's all IP, outstanding mobility, support for voice and VoLTE. All of these technology attributes are important and needed for a lot of these IoT applications. Fourth is, operators like T-Mobile, they bring the benefits of the great coverage, and with that they bring a managed access to licensed spectrum with a robust and proven security regime, and a strong track record of reliability. So the networks themselves are outstanding, and finally, the roadmap, the LTE roadmap that 3GPP drives has done a great job of repurposing or defining specifications that fit in the LTE umbrella, yet address the needs of these IoT use cases. So specifications like LTE-M and narrowband IoT that are starting to launch now, these solutions can offer years of battery life and modules that are available at or below even 2G module price points. So Kelly, my last slide is next. And this I'll just hit quickly is the idea here is to kind of showcase that there's a ton of IoT use cases. It's a very diverse landscape, and this diagram just shows how the various flavors can map to those various flavors of LTE technology can map to these different use cases. And I've highlighted a couple in red across these clouds, if you will, that fit within this connected car, connected transportation landscape. And the beauty of this is, there's an LTE solution that works on all of these existing networks on the same spectrum that's already widely deployed and where the coverage exists. There's a solution for all of these. So LTE is ready to serve this wide range of not just IoT, but also specifically the connected car use cases that are various and wide ranging. So that's really all I wanted to share. Again, Sequans is really thrilled to be here today, and hopefully you're getting good information out of this webinar today.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Craig. We're going to move on to Kenny from Mojio.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Kenny Hawk here, CEO of Mojio. Thrilled to be here with the webinar participants. Thank you for joining. We're also very thankful for T-Mobile's leadership in this space and choosing Mojio as their partner to provide the connected car platform and the Sync Up Drive app. Our company is based in Palo Alto and Vancouver, and we just opened up in Prague in the Czech Republic. We provide an open cloud platform that's hardware agnostic. We feel it's very important to give carriers choice on hardware. So we certify multiple different OBD dongles to have all the appropriate security functions built into the device, but also nail the performance on the GPS, accelerometer, and performance of the LTE modem. We take the data off the OBD device, pump it up into the cloud in a secure encrypted connection, and then store that data up in our cloud and make that data available to our core app, which is for T-Mobile is called Sync Up Drive, and then also make it available through open APIs to independent app developers. We just had the world's largest connected car hackathon in LA a few weeks ago, and some great ideas came out of that. And we just completed a similar hackathon in the Czech Republic this past weekend. And we make it really easy for people to build apps on top of our platform to access this data. Next slide, please. We look at three different areas of data. So diagnostic data, today for most consumers, when they walk into a mechanic, they're really at a disadvantage. All they know is they have an orange check engine light on their vehicle, and they have no idea if it means they didn't tighten their gas cap, or they have something simple that needs to get fixed next time they have their oil changed, or they really need to pull over before they cause more damage to their vehicle. We unlock that data, present it to the customer in the Sync Up Drive app, and give them information so they could handle that and be safe, and also not cause additional damage on their vehicle. And in the future, we'll share with them approximately what they should pay for that repair and connect them with shops that are performing fair service and have that be peer rated versus walking in cold to a car mechanic and not really knowing what's going on. We also are looking at behavioral data. How are you driving? Where are you driving? How could you drive better? And obviously that makes it safer for drivers and their families and for businesses, for their employees, but also insurance companies are interested in encouraging people to drive better and giving them strong discounts for that, up to 15% in some cases. And then contextual data, what's going on around the vehicle? What's the safe speed? What's the weather like? Is there a recall on my specific vehicle? So instead of getting a recall notice via postcard to a house you no longer live at for a car you no longer own, that recall will now go directly into your app and you'll get notified while you're still driving that vehicle. And that will not only save money, but will also save lives. Next slide. So we're a B2B to C company. We're very much focused on helping operators provide connected car services like T-Mobile is doing here in the States, Deutsche Telekom is doing in Europe. We launched with Deutsche Telekom Czech Republic this past week, and we'll be launching with multiple countries there through Deutsche Telekom, who's also a lead strategic investor in Mojio. We're also have Amazon as an investor, and Amazon is interested in delivering packages to your home, to your office, and soon to the trunk of your car, and also putting the amazing Alexa voice technology into the vehicle. And then long-term, also building quite a large fleet. Our platform is built on Microsoft Azure, and we're very happy that that platform scales globally. We're up and running with our second-generation platform, both in the US and Europe. And of course, we have multiple third-party apps that have been built on our platform. Next slide. On to Anritsu. Thank you.
Questions. We do have, thank you so much, folks. And we are going to be jumping onto our Q&A. Just a quick announcement from our other sponsor here, which is Anritsu. They are going to be having a connected car technology seminar if you're in Silicon Valley on Thursday, December 8th. So these are some of the topics they're going to be talking about: the road to LTE Advanced and LTE Advanced Pro, looking ahead to 5G, and then as well as some focus on the advanced driver assistance systems, radar, and autonomous vehicle testing. So yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into our Q&A. We feel free to submit questions via the user interface, and we already do have some interesting ones coming in from our audience. You know, I think one of the questions that I wanted us to address, and I see this is from our audience as well, is this question of privacy and security issues. You know, I think we're already talking about some, you know, some data management, you know, and I'm curious as to, you know, what folks see happening with data ownership, privacy, and security when it comes to, you know, to the connected car. Kenny, I don't know if you want to start with that, since you know, you mentioned you know, some of the data management that Mojio is doing.
Sure, happy to do that. And maybe I start with privacy and then get on to security. So as we architected our platform, we thought a lot about privacy and making it very, very straightforward for people to opt in on an individual, aggregate, or anonymous basis. And you can imagine you might be, you know, very happy to share your data with Michelin so that you get tires at the right time and get the exact right tire for not only your vehicle but how you drive. But you might not want to share that driving data with your children or maybe your boss. And for the right trade-off on value, you might share it with your insurance company. So all of that is built in to the system from the beginning. So people have full control over what data does and does not get shared. On the security side, we're talking about vehicles, and we are very focused on security. The way we architected our system is that the OBD device has a secure encrypted connection using the same 128-bit encryption that banks use, and that's the only way data gets up to the cloud. And the apps and the web interface and the APIs only get access to the cloud. They do not get access to the device. The only exception we make for that is to turn on and off the Wi-Fi and set the SSID and password. But there's no access to the CAN bus, and security is architected from the beginning. And we pay a lot of attention to that, and including doing regular security audits around the entire system, including the device. Over to you, Kelly.
Okay. We did have a question quickly about defining B2B and B2C. B2B, business to business, B2C, business to consumer, and then there's also the B2B to C. So, enabling operators, for instance, to be able to provide services to their end consumer customers. Anybody else want to chime in on security or data privacy?
So, Kelly, this is Craig with Sequans. Just very briefly, I think security is an end-to-end consideration. Every link in the chain has to do its job, and I'd say from a LTE connectivity standpoint, certainly the security and the link layer encryption is built into the standard. So you certainly got link layer encryption and security in that aspect, and also I think there's an inherent security to being on a cellular network, as opposed to a kind of open internet, if you will, where in most cases, a lot of these services can leverage the availability of essentially a private APN or a virtual private network kind of solution. So that's an added layer of security that can be baked into a lot of these applications.
Okay, great. Let's jump to, let's see. There was a question about who created the dongle for Sync Up Drive. Let's see. Rusty, I believe that was ZTE. I don't know if...
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, ZTE is the provider of the dongle. We work very closely with ZTE and Mojio on the integration and on some of the security aspects, as we were just hearing. So they are the provider of that dongle.
Okay, great. And there was also a question about, does the Wi-Fi device utilize macro site resources in any way? I'm assuming that it's connected to the cellular network. That's the backhaul and the connection, and then the Wi-Fi is the front end, basically.
Yeah, that's correct. So the way that the product works is the device in the vehicle has a full LTE capability running all of the T-Mobile bands, which includes our high and mid bands, as well as 700 megahertz on the low end. And then it does the Wi-Fi router functionality, connecting up to 5 devices in the vehicle. So it's using the LTE network as its backhaul.
Okay. I wanted to jump to a question about monetization. One of the things that I saw as I was doing the research on this report was really that there are a lot of players who are trying to monetize connected car. It ranges from, the insurance industry doing some interesting things, both in terms of, pricing, but also I think they call it asset or financial protection in terms of things like remote starter disruptors, where if you miss a payment, it's sort of like it's a step on the path to repossession of a vehicle. You won't be able to start it if you miss a payment. The vehicle can be tracked and located for repossession. And then there's also the folks, and Amazon's been mentioned a couple of times here. And you also have folks like Apple who are talking about, wanting to see their user interface more broadly integrated across, not just things like smart home, but also more in automotive. And there's a lot of sort of interesting startups, I think, in this area. You've got, apps and smartphone integration folks who are using that as a path to go into the car. And so what I'd like to ask our panelists is, how do you think monetization of of the connected car is going to play out. Obviously the mobile network operators do see a role here, and there are a lot of partnerships, with OEMs and among various parts of the tech and telecommunications ecosystem going on. So I don't know if maybe Rusty, you'd like to start with your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure, happy to. The interesting thing about this connected car space is, as you pointed out at the very beginning here, Kelly, it's still in the very early stages of growth, and it's accelerating, as we saw that some of the analysts are increasing their forecasts as it accelerates. And I saw a question in the text box here about why hasn't it scaled beyond the insurance industry, and we believe that a lot of that is due to the fact that it hasn't been as simple and easy to use as it needs to be, and as accessible for everybody. And one of the reasons we focused in on this aftermarket offering is the fact that so many of the folks out there have a car today that they're not just going to immediately replace, but they do want this technology that changes so much faster than cars do. Our consumer technology, as we've all learned in the last decade or so, changes so quick that a car that's 10 years old today is a pretty common sight on the road, but a phone that's 10 years old, you probably have a real hard time finding one.
Absolutely.
It's one of these things where being able to be quick to market and also be quick to adopt to these new technologies is making it much more accessible. We believe that's going to really drive a lot of the growth that we're seeing here.
Hey, Rusty, this is Kenny here. Just to add on another key view on this, and this is answering Mr. Beal's question, Todd Beal. In the past, the OBD applications were very one-sided, one-dimensional. You look at insurance, take a dongle and we'll give you a discount, but you can't really do much else with the dongle, and it's all about what's in it for the insurance company. For the user, it's a discount. For the insurance company, it's data. What we see is putting the consumer first and really solving their problems and saying what's in it for them, and why would they want to not only install the dongle but actually pay for it and pay for the service. It's because you're doing things that make their lives safer, simpler, and save them money. So being able to keep track of where their family members are, yes, getting them a discount on insurance, but also letting them know what's going on inside their vehicle. Most of the prior attempts around OBD and insurance have been very one-dimensional and really more focused on what's in it for the insurance company. So I think this more open approach and giving the consumer the power to have the information on their vehicle and make their lives easier is showing. And that's why the product is doing so well.
Okay. Craig, do you have thoughts on monetization? I know this came up when we talked previously about the role that mobile network operators might play versus others in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think, what we see, I can tell you just from the number of design-in activities going on in our customer base, and it's, many dozens of kind of applications in the connected car space. Most of them are actually not consumer-oriented. I'd say, this product that Kenny and Kenny and Rusty have described is kind of aimed at consumers, kind of the retail market, if you will. Mm-hmm. We see a lot more on the enterprise fleet tracking, enterprise management of these assets for a variety of reasons. And also the one that you mentioned is pretty interesting in the last year or two. It's really become hot. Is what's called buy here, pay here, and it's the used car market in the United States. It allows these lots and these car selling outfits to extend loans and manage the risk of the financial, the financing that they're doing for users. So there's a way it's for them to be sort of, I think the risk reduction financing is really what's monetizing this, and they're improving their collection rate and their recovery rate and protecting that asset. So I think there's those, both of those have paybacks that aren't measured in terms of maybe direct dollars adding to the income side of the statement, but I think the cost savings and asset management, risk reduction in insurance rates, things like that. Those are all the ways that some of these applications are paying back the use case.
And that was something that I heard from multiple people, is that in the especially in you know, different the non-consumer vehicle market, things like, you know, heavy machinery, construction equipment, you know, where there's a real in some cases fairly immediate payoff for being able to track a vehicle's location, geofence to make sure that it doesn't get stolen from a job site overnight, you know, efficiently move assets that you need from job site to job site, you know, that they see more traction in those type of, in adoption at least. Some of the services I think are still limited in terms of, you know, okay, there's a light and we're going to alert you to a light, but we may not have necessarily some of the contextual data of, okay, what was going on environmentally, or, you know, in terms of driver behavior to cause that light. So, you know, but I think that my impression was that from the enterprise vehicle side of things, you know, we might start seeing, and we, you know, probably are starting to see some of the applications that may eventually make it over to the consumer side.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, great. Let's jump to some more questions. There was a question for T-Mobile. Can the user of the Sync Up Drive service get in touch with public safety through the service? And I don't think that was one of the features of this. It's that it's pretty centered on the data from the car as opposed to communications.
That's correct. Yes. Today, if you need to reach public safety, you can dial that from your phone, but it's not part of the functionality of the Sync Up Drive product. So there is not a public safety connection built in.
Okay, great. Let's see. What else do we have here? There's a question about the car radio dominating the car dashboard for decades. What solutions are being put forth to accommodate that ability in the connected car or through apps? Will it be played out by user choices like Google Play or Apple CarPlay? This gets a little bit more into the infotainment side, I think. But you know, that car radio landscape, I think, is changing. I think what you see from companies like Tesla, for instance, is not only more of sort of a general broad screen, very sleek interface, but one that can also be updated over the air to change the functionality. You know, and I think that's one of the more interesting questions out there is, you know, is also product development. That was something that came up frequently with folks who come from the automotive side of things, where, you know, if you ask people, you know, do you want a car radio? They might say, oh yes, you know, and don't take away my CD player. But when you actually look at behavior, they might not use it very much at all. And that real estate might be better accommodated with something that people actually do use, you know, that might have more significant integration with their smartphone. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that.
Well, hey, I'd like to chime in, Kelly, Rusty here.
Yeah.
You know, the interesting thing.
Rusty? Rusty, are you still there?
Yeah, I just got a message that I've been unmuted by the host.
Okay. All right. Well, we heard you, so please continue your thought.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Yeah, if everyone can hear me, I'll continue.
Yep.
But what we're seeing with audio for users in cars is interesting because at T-Mobile, we've launched Music Freedom as a service for our customers a while back now, and we see the amount of music streaming that's going on to be increasing dramatically, and people are using it in their cars very, very often. And we believe that giving folks that choice, the ability to listen to virtually anything whenever they want, is what's happening, and the folks that are designing car dashboards are very much working on how to make that easier to use in the vehicles while people are driving. Okay. We strongly support that, and we believe we'll see some more interesting applications along those lines in newer vehicles coming out shortly.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on that topic, on sort of the infotainment aspect? Okay, great. We also did have a question of, do insurance companies use platforms like the one from T-Mobile, or do they use their own hardware solutions for behavior-based insurance? My impression is that they do, that I think it's a combination of, fleet management services. I think Verizon Hum has some applications on that side. And then I thought it was interesting, Allstate, the insurance company, actually started its own connected car sort of standalone business unit called Arity. They're looking not only to enable connected car services, and information for themselves as an insurance company and serve their own needs, but they're also looking to, to enable some of these technologies for other companies. Okay. So let's, I want to ask folks, one of the things that I thought was interesting just in talking to people, is what connected car services are actually out there. I think that, we see this offering from T-Mobile, and obviously they feel that there's a market for this. The time is right. It's now. This is happening. This is, coming right now. And there is useful data that people could have from their cars that they don't already. So, and I don't know, Kenny, you might want to start us off here about, what connected car services you're actually seeing, and what ones you think will emerge over the next couple of years, and then maybe in the longer term?
Sure, thanks, Kelly. So, I look at some of the interesting apps that are being built in our platform that you'll start to see in the beginning of next year, and one of them is around teen driving. And the traditional approach around teen driving has been to use punishment. You went too fast, you brake too hard, you have had rapid acceleration, stop doing that. And the approach, you raise children to be independent. You finally hand them the keys to the car, and then you treat them like they're 2 years old. We see some interesting applications being built on our platform to turn that on its head and use a very different approach to help teen drivers drive more safely. And if you look at the statistics, 1 out of every 3 teens that dies in a car. So making an impact there will not only save money, it'll also save lives. We also see a lot of interest in small businesses that want to keep track of their vehicles, know which vehicle to send out on a job, understand which ones have problems or need fuel, and also at the end of their life, which vehicle should they sell and replace. And today the industrial fleet tracking applications are very cumbersome, expensive, hard to use. And so we see some applications around making that really simple for the small and medium business, which is a terrific fit for T-Mobile and their B2B sales teams. In the other areas, it's around helping your family stay organized. And we see not necessarily a separate app, but a core feature of the main app is to make it really easy for families to stay in touch with each other without distracting them or interrupting them while they're driving. And then the last one that I'll just mention is if you've used Amazon Alexa at home, you get hooked on it. It just becomes part of your daily life. For us, we use it staying organized in the morning. What's the weather? Read the news, reorder the supplies, play my latest Audible book that I'm reading. And you want that same kind of seamless audio interface, voice interface in the car. And so we see a lot coming with Amazon Alexa voice in the car. You'll start to see some things, some additional skills from Mojio in Q1 next year.
Okay. Craig, thoughts on this? You touched a little bit on it in terms of enterprise versus consumer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would say, like I said, we're seeing it down. We've had customers serve both the consumer and the enterprise, but I'd say it's a 10-to-1 ratio what we're seeing.
Wow.
Enterprise centric. So, and these are things you can imagine if you're managing a fleet of vehicles or delivery trucks or utility service vehicles or what have you, that these are expensive assets that you're entrusting to employees to drive all over the world or all over the country or wherever, and it's asset management. It's really financial risk reduction is the service, and ensuring you get the best insurance rate for your fleet of drivers, because you can show data that says they drive safely, or you can performance manage out drivers who aren't driving safely, those kind of things. So that use case to me is a classic. Manage your costs. You're managing your bottom line as an enterprise. Or you can also consider sort of as an extension of managing cost is sort of being fuel efficient. What's the best route? What's the best time to go to run a delivery or to service an entity in your, in your field of service. So I think it comes down to profit management, risk management, cost cost management, and things like that for the enterprise. Those are the big services, I guess, that I see.
Craig, you reminded me of another one. This is Kenny. We're seeing quite a few of the millennials that, like Airbnb, they're making money off their apartment. They're now making money off their car when they're not using it. But they love the ability to know how that car sharing person is taking care of their car. And, we've seen lots of take up in that area. So car sharing is taking off, not just with Uber, but with individuals renting out their cars. And obviously, you want to keep track of how people are taking care of that car when they're driving it.
Good point.
Okay, Rusty, any thoughts on what's coming down the, on what you see emerging, or maybe in the near future?
I can't share our future plans specifically here, but I can tell you that, as Kenny mentioned, with the hackathons and the other interesting developments going on, there are a number of things that are coming down the pipeline that are enabling lots of different areas. And we were talking earlier about, is this a B2B or B2C kind of focus? And we're really seeing expansions in both areas as you involve consumers in many different aspects of the business sides of these use cases too. So we're very excited by what's going on, and to make the point of some of the people early on, that the insurance industry seems to be where the leadership in using an OBD2 port has been. We see that changing quite rapidly with the introduction of products like SyncUp Drive.
Okay, we have a number of questions on bringing up DSRC for the connected car versus cellular. Also, some folks asking about the potential for LoRa for connected cars. Obviously, Rusty, when you and I talked, you talked about how the fact that T-Mobile has been expanding its LTE network, has been part of what is really enabling this product to come to market. My impression of DSRC at this point is that it's still, I think there is still some stuff going on with the spectrum and in terms of where that's going. I think there's research and testing going on, but that ecosystem is not nearly as developed at this point as cellular. What I personally heard from folks in terms of using things like Sigfox and LoRa and sort of the very low data rate sensor oriented networks was that the amount of data coming off the car is starting to really get up there, and it's only expected to increase as as more parts of the car get connected, as we start moving toward not only advanced driver assistance systems, but even some degree of autonomous driving. And I don't see very many people talking about things like LoRa and Sigfox necessarily, or even DSRC, necessarily for the connected car.
Yeah, Kelly, let me jump in here. This is Rusty. I see a number of questions around this, and we demonstrated some edge computing technology. One of the questions was about this earlier on at the Automotive World Congress in Detroit a couple of years ago, really focusing on how does this technology work, similar to the picture you're showing on the questions page here, where you get this mesh network of every car appearing to be communicating with each other. The idea being that you've got very low latency, so you can do adaptive braking and other things in emergencies and other types of notifications in real time. The testing that we've done has proved that the technology's there. The latencies are so low when you do the edge computing, basically taking a signal from a vehicle to a tower to another vehicle to make the range larger than just direct vehicle to vehicle. You can implement these, and we've demonstrated it on real cars on a test track. The challenge is what the business models are going to be as those develop. And that's, I think one of the things that may be hindering this development is how does that business play out over time, it does take a fair amount of infrastructure, both in the vehicle and at the base station level if you do it through a cellular infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that Dsrc type communication directly vehicle to vehicle will provide that functionality over a cellular, just because the business case may be different. But we're interested in it. We're certainly interested in talking to folks who are working in the space, who have ideas. We believe that it's going to take some time, but with autonomous vehicles and other things coming up, the need for this type of technology is certainly growing at the moment.
Okay, Craig, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for those who don't maybe know what DSRC is, it's dedicated short-range communications, and I think it's not. One of the questions I think was posed as DSRC versus cellular. Well, today there is no versus. For one, DSRC is still in the sort of early developmental phases. There's, like you said, they're testing it. They're sorting out spectrum and protocols and interference mitigation and things like that. And its use case is short range as opposed to a cellular network that is wide area. So it's very different use cases. And I don't think it's one necessarily obsoletes the other. That's not the objective there. And I think cellular has its advantages in terms of coverage. Obviously, T-Mobile covers millions and millions of pops across. I think Rusty over 300 million pops last I heard. So, something in that range. DSRC is intended to cover the next lane. So it's just a different animal and a different set of use cases and performance attributes. And then moving over, kind of comparing kind of a traditional mobile network like T-Mobile operates versus these emerging kind of proprietary low power wide area technologies like LoRa or Sigfox. Again, I think you just have to be realistic about the coverage, the availability of the network across wide areas is not there with a LoRa network or a Sigfox network. Those networks aren't built like that. They're built in, spots and campuses, in fields, in oil, oil fields or mines or what have you. And they're not, I don't think, also designed for high mobility, vehicular mobility speeds, handovers from cell to cell, nor do they have the bandwidth to support some of the use cases, the firmware updates, the data, up to the cloud and the reachability from the network. So I think they're just to me, there's no choice here, or it's obvious to me that cellular is the right technology for the kinds of things that we've been talking about here.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I want to ask each of you to chime in on I think probably one more question, and that's the relationship of the smartphone to the connected car and connected car services. There's a lot of sort of speculation that, while folks are very much using their smartphones and relying on their smartphones in the car right now, and like to see a high degree of, their car being able to do the things that their smartphone can do. There seems to be a lot of expectation that we will move toward more embedded capabilities, even if it takes a very long time for the vehicle market to turn over, to where we get to a point where most cars are connected. I think, Rusty, you've pointed out several times that there's a huge used car base, and that's not going anywhere. So, Kenny, I don't know if maybe we can start with you. Obviously, you guys, have a smartphone, connection to, to how people are accessing data. I'm curious as to what you think the relationship of smartphone will be in the context of connected car.
Sure, thanks, Kelly. So users experience the dongle, the platform through their smartphone. They have their smartphone with them everywhere they go. They're used to using apps. They are expecting a really good user experience, user interface. And that's the beauty of the Apple and the Android world, is that consumers have been trained on how to use apps and what to expect from an app, and wanting the app to be intuitive. So we love the fact that smartphones are everywhere today, and that's one of the reasons why this technology didn't take off 5 years ago, 10 years ago, is it just wasn't where it needed to be. But now that you have great performance in the smartphone, low-cost dongles. Dongles have gotten very affordable. Experiencing that inside the smartphone is terrific. And you look at things like notifications and not having to create all that technology yourself. It's all there and available through Android and through iOS. It makes the experience much better. And you think about even simple things like sharing your location and letting somebody follow you on a trip, your family, your children, your team members. And the system makes it really easy to do that. So we love the fact that the smartphone is there. We also think there will be some applications where you'll get data just from the smartphone, and that might be your first experience in a connected car application. And then as you want to have additional features, you'll upgrade to a dongle and put Wi-Fi in the car, and have much more accurate information, including automatic crash notification and detection. The other thing we think about is the connection between the home and the car. Automated home, secure home, home security systems, and the connected car really should be talking to each other. And we see lots of opportunity and interest there to make your life easier when you get home and when you leave your home.
Okay. Craig, thoughts on the relationship of smartphone integration versus embedded?
Well, I'll confess first to being an embedded sort of a bigot, if you will, or a zealot. I think we've set out to truly believe that putting low cost, low power, simple to integrate connectivity into a lot of things is what the Internet of Things is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having said that, I'm a consumer and I'm a driver, so I do see some in a lot of cases the phone got it right. The phone user experience got it right. I mean, I'm sort of a map zealot, and I can tell you, personally, I believe that the maps you can get on your phone are some of the finest, pieces of software ever developed. And when I need to find a location or find a restaurant nearby or what have you, I go to my phone. And I think historically I don't think anybody would probably argue with me here that most of the built-in nav systems in cars don't come close to the user experience that you get with your smartphone. I don't think there's a whole lot of debate about that. Now, will they get better, and will integrated or embedded sort of connectivity solutions provide other value that maybe the nav system by itself doesn't provide? I think that answer is yes. And I think, like Kenny is mentioning, this some of the kind of the integration of multiple no touch, hands off, automated or unattended kinds of services and value propositions that come from these embedded solutions are what make them valuable, and what I think is the promise for further embedded implementations.
Okay. Rusty, we'll end with you. Your thoughts on the smartphone role versus embedded?
It's a great question, and I think this will be a question we'll be answering again over and over again for many years to come. But what we've already heard from Kenny and from Craig really hits the nail on the head. People are married to their smartphones today. As everyone has seen, the penetration has continued to rise, and it's getting close to almost every phone being a smartphone nowadays. The challenge is the integration of that smartphone into the vehicle and making it work in concert with the functionality in the vehicle. And the question probably is not, do you have smartphones or do you have embedded, but more, you are going to have both smartphones and embedded functionality in the vehicles, and how do you make them work better together? And that's really what we're all focusing on, and what the industry as a whole is viewing as the holy grail. How do I get that awesome smartphone nav function on my car screen? How do I get my audio integration so my phone calls are crystal clear no matter how fast I'm driving? How do I get all the data that we've got in terms of vehicle maintenance and everything? And Sync Up Drive is a great start to providing this integration and functionality, but I think you'll see more to come, and we're certainly eager to be part of that as it continues to evolve.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you all for participating. To our audience, thank you all for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.